Hello, everyone. I'm Karen MacNeil, and this is winespeed.com's People to Know, insider interviews with the most fascinating and important people in the wine business. And today I'm so pleased that we're talking to Annette Alvarez-Peters, who after 36 years recently retired as Assistant Vice President for Costco's wine, beer, and spirits program. And as many of you would know, Costco is one of the largest wine retailers in the world with roughly $2 billion in sales annually. Annette began her career as a sales audit clerk and worked her way up to a buyer in the electronics and auto department. She later became regional wine and spirits buyer, and in 2005 was promoted to assistant general merchandise manager for the company's entire wine, beer, and spirits division. In 2016, she was then promoted to assistant vice president, overseeing 20 alcohol beverage buyers worldwide. She has won so many awards, all deservedly, I must say, and appeared, this must be a record, in 10 of Decanter magazine's biennial power rankings as one of the most influential individuals in the wine industry. So Annette, my God, that's pretty incredible. I feel like I have 1,000 questions for you, but let me just start with, where did you spend your childhood? Was wine part of your family and your family's tradition?
Yeah, good question. That's a no. My father was in the military. He was in the Navy. So I was a Navy brat, so to speak, and we traveled all over the place. And there really was no drinking in our family. And I came into the business sort of by default. I was in the right time at the right place in Los Angeles and interviewed for the position for beer, wine, and spirits buyer. And I got the job.
Well, you know, you worked first, though, in Costco's auto parts and electronics division, the two things about which I know absolutely nothing. If either the computer breaks or the flat tire comes, I'm really in trouble. So I'm impressed about that. But I'm wondering how you, you know, it's not easy to learn about wine, right? For most of us, it's a kind of a lifelong pursuit. So how did you teach yourself enough about wine to feel confident to move from electronics and auto into wine?
Actually, it was just the audio department that I was in. So it was the audio and also telecommunications, which I purchased for the company. But yes, wine can be intimidating, to say the least. I was determined to figure it out. I think like anything I've done in my life, just figure it out. We can all get there. It might take some time, and it did take time. I remember talking to distributors at the time in 1995 when I first started in the business. It was a mid-size department, and I thought, if I'm ever going to learn this, I probably should take some classes. And so there was just some local community courses that I ended up taking with some suppliers and distributors. And then I thought, oh, I should probably learn a little bit more. And I enrolled with Society of Wine and also Wine and Spirits Education Trust. And so I went through all of those got my diploma from Wesset and the certified wine educator in Society of Wine. I did start a stint with the Master Wine program, but with my job and the program, it became a little too difficult. So I had to bow out of one of them.
Yeah, the Master of Wine is, of course, not only expensive, but enormously time consuming. Almost no one can do it while holding down another, especially a job as demanding as yours. You know, when I think about Costco, I think probably most people assume that they'll find a really wide selection of kind of every night, not very expensive wines there. But during your tenure, Costco at one point was the largest importer of classified growth Bordeaux. And I'm wondering, and I remember myself the first time going into Costco and seeing, I don't know, it was something like Grange or one of the top chateau there. And I thought, wow. So do cult wines, how do cult wines like, I don't know, Grange, Screaming Eagle, Chateau Petrus, do they really end up on lots of Costco shelves?
When we can get a hold of them, yes. And there was a lot of years where a lot of wineries did not want to sell Costco. So that was quite challenging for us to convince retail or wineries to sell our channel of trade. But yeah, they make its way. We started buying futures in 1995 vintage. I didn't know what I was doing at the time. I was taking advice from our distributor and said, I hope these sell because I don't know what I'm picking right now. and luckily they did. And then we became, all of a sudden, over time, we were able to be one of the largest sellers of classified growth. But they do, we have at Costco, there's a wide range of members that drink from entry-level wines to their collectors. And it's one of those seek and find. They're not always going to be there all the time. As you know, shopping at Costco, if you see it, you better buy it because it might not be there when you make that decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you, I'm curious, I can imagine that it was at least initially difficult to convince some of those estates, those wineries. How did you do it? I mean, at some point, right, you have so many good wines that that wineries want to be in the company of other great wineries. But initially, it must have been hard to convince wineries.
It was really hard. But I was determined. You know, I would go to the various trade shows and go up to every table every year, give them my card again and ask, you know, is it time? Do you think you would sell us this year? A lot of times, of course, especially in the beginning, it was no, not at this time, but never say never. Heard a lot of no's, even up into my retirement, still heard a lot of no's, and that's okay. I understand everybody has their own business plans, and sometimes Costco doesn't fit into that, but that's okay. It's still trying to connect with them. And then a lot of times what happens is there's tough times out there. COVID could be one of them. And where wineries find themselves in a pickle and need to move some cases, and Costco has always been there because the contact information has been there. So sometimes it works out for both parties and it's a win-win. Yeah.
Now I want to imagine how your sort of day-to-day when you're at Costco, I imagine you standing in this huge room surrounded by hundreds of bottles, tasting them and deciding what to do. Is that what it was like? I mean, what was the day-to-day like?
Yeah, no. I wish. You know, there was regional buyers and everybody was tasting wines at different times. A day-to-day would be, there's a lot of paperwork when you're working for a large corporation. So there's a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of presentations, there's a lot of you know, talking to suppliers on different issues, and the buyers, when we can get on conference calls, we get on conference calls, sharing the information, how you would taste, who tasted what is selling in their particular region, and really sharing that information. But I wish it was every day, all day, tasting wines all day, but it wasn't like that. There's a lot of paperwork.
Yeah, believe me, for me too. It's not tasting wine is certainly the fun part, right?
Yes.
But you know, I want to say that I remember in 2012 there was you were interviewed on, I think, CNBC, and you referred to wine as no different than toilet paper, and that created this big kind of uproar. I'm wondering what you meant then, and do you still feel that way today?
Yeah, unfortunately, that was a big blow up, the way it was portrayed.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that is not what was said.
Ah.
And they took different answers to different questions and put them together. And I actually wasn't the one who said that. That was the interviewer who said that. But it was out there. That's how it came across. And what they were trying to get me to say was that I was the most important department at Costco.
Mm.
And I wasn't going to go there with them on that particular question. And because everybody's important. Anybody who works at the company, from the top to the very bottom, you know, if you're a cart pusher, you're still important. Everybody has important roles.
Right.
And so I just wasn't going to go there with them. And they had asked about the toilet paper and foil, I believe it was, and asking if wine was more important than that. And I was asking him why he was asking that question. But I wasn't going to insult any of my colleagues, because every job is important.
Yeah, yeah, beautifully said. Now, I'm sure that at least some of the time when you weren't working, you had the opportunity to travel to various wine regions. And I'm wondering, you know, it is a difficult time now. COVID is among us. We're in California. Fires are everywhere. Just wondering if you had, if you could have a glass of wine right now in any city, sitting in a little cafe or restaurant anywhere in the world, where would you be and what would you be drinking?
Oh gosh. You know, I've been very fortunate to have traveled to a lot of wine countries. And I think that's a really hard question for me to answer, because I have so many favorite memories of everywhere that I've been. But probably, champagne.
Always a good choice. Yeah.
But couldn't I just have a big table and pretend I was everywhere with a glass of everything?
Yeah, that sounds good too. Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. So, what's next for you? I mean, you're a young woman. The word retiring doesn't seem right in the context of you. What's next on your horizon?
You know, my husband's retired and has been for 5 years, and it was time to spend some time with him as well. I'm going to do a little bit of consulting, but only part-time, because I do want to be retired. I want to, tomorrow's not promised for anybody. And so I don't have the daily grind anymore, but I still want to keep my toe in the business. So helping a couple of people, various manufacturers have reached out for me already. Also being a part of Wine Unify, which, you know, getting people of color into the business, and how can I help there and inspire and be a mentor. So those are the different things I'm going to do. And that's what's next.
Well, you certainly are aspiring and inspiring. Last question for you, Annette, which is, tell us something about yourself that would surprise most people to know about you.
Good question. Probably that I'm a low taster. I'm not a super taster. I'm not even an average taster. And I found this out. We did a tour when I was in the Los Angeles office. We did a plant tour at Lowry's, and we worked with, the whole buying group did. And we worked with their R&D staff, and they were teaching us how to taste food. And what they do is, on your tongue, all your taste buds, you put the little paper reinforcements, those little circles, and blue food coloring dye, and they count your taste buds. And so of our group, there was 2 of us that were low tasters, 2 were super tasters, and everybody else was an average. And I remember thinking, is this why it's so difficult for me to taste wine? So you can taste wine. It just takes a lot more effort. And
wow.
I just said, oh, another hard thing in my life.
Exactly. You're such a determined person that that's one more thing to be, one more reason to be determined, I guess. Well, Annette, thank you. And our full interview with Annette Alvarez-Peters appears on winespeed.com's People to Know page. Please check it out. I'm sure you'll find it fascinating.